Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with fabulous concert programs number 77, which is the next in our series of Sibelius symphonies, the completion of our series of Sibelius symphonies, because we did all the less familiar ones way back in our list of concert programs, which will never be heard in concert, but which you can play at home. But now, because of popular demand, we're finishing up with the more popular ones, or at least the ones we left out. And we're up to Symphony No. 2, the most popular of all the Sibelius symphonies, the one that everybody gets to know. It's supposed to be so typical of Sibelius. It's actually very typical of Sibelius, that is true, but it's also a transitional work, one that has one foot in the earlier romantic Tchaikovsky/Liszt type Sibelius, which is why it's so popular, quite frankly, and one foot in what was going to happen later in his life, the more neoclassical, restrained, formally fascinating, quite frankly. If you're a form whore like I am, then you just are going to be fascinated by Sibelius's later works, and to a certain extent by this one, because its first movement does something quite remarkable with what we know as traditional sonata form. Now, traditional sonata form, to sort of go through it very quickly, it's a movement where you have two subjects or theme ideas, thematic areas. They can have multiple ideas, but, two areas called the exposition when you hear them the first time. And then they all get taken apart and played with in a development section. And then they recapitulate in their original order, usually, or original form, in the original key. All in the same original key, whereas the opening had a couple different ones. That's sonata form. Does that make any sense? No, it doesn't, of course. I've described sonata form a billion times and better than I just did, but that's okay. You get the sense of it. Because what Sibelius does is really sort of turn it all on its head. He has an exposition that consists of a series of disconnected, fragmentary ideas. And then in what should be the development section, where the ideas are all fragmented, he assembles them. He puts them all together like pieces of a puzzle into a giant, gorgeous, fulfilling, glowing melody in the brass at the climax. And then, by way of coda, he disassembles them again, and they're still sort of jumbled up, and he plays them on top of each other and shortens them and all that. But, to sort of get us to a satisfying but quicker conclusion. It's a remarkable movement. It really is. And he does it all in an atmosphere of sort of genial, pastoral, very, very fresh and lively, but relaxed, emotional expression. It's just extraordinary. The tension only increases as things get assembled together. It's kind of like fusion in the heart of a star. All the little things or bits are bouncing around, but under pressure, they finally fuse together into something else, giving out prodigious amounts of heat and light. Really an extraordinary movement. And so the symphony begins with a bunch of fragments. The fragments, they're easy. I just love this movement. So they're the opening. Da 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 da. Bum 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 bum. Idea number 1. Idea number 2 is in the woodwinds. Yum bum 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 ba da 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 dum bum ba da 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 dum. That's idea number 2. Idea number 3 is a string recitation, a passionate string thing. Ya da 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 dum bum bum da dum da dum bum bum. That's idea number 2 or 3. Idea number 4 is a little pizzicato thing. Blah 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 blah, like that. And idea number 5 is another woodwind tune. Ya da 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 dum bum, like that. That's what the ideas are. And he just tosses them out, and, they sound charming, but kind of, absent-minded. And then the development section, he's going to assemble them all into this big, beautiful, gorgeous climax. It's amazing. Absolutely amazing. And now the second movement really is one of his tone poemy, Lemminkainen legend, romantic things. Very turbulent, sort of mythical and full of atmosphere, and oh, it's just gorgeous. But it's not a conventional slow movement by any means, because it has very, very quick episodes. And then the scherzo and finale, they're attached, like Beethoven's Fifth. They run into each other. In fact, Beethoven's Fifth is the obvious model. And the scherzo is like a whirring string thing. It's like that. It goes really, really fast. Then there's a middle section, another lyrical pastoral tune, quite similar to ya da 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 bum. This one is da 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 da. I mean, it's virtually the same thing. And then the finale, the grand finale that emerges, as Beethoven's Fifth does, from this scherzo, you do 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 do, with the trombones going cha 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 cha. It's wonderful. So that tune from the finale, if you're listening carefully, is nothing but an inversion, that is played upside down version, of the woodwind tune from the first movement. Da 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 da. Well, turn it around upside down, and you get da 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 da. Well, yes. Fabulous, absolutely fabulous, but transitional. And so for this program, I wanted to sort of touch on two elements, very different elements of the symphony. One is the pastoral character of the first movement, which is so characteristic and beautiful. It's somehow so Scandinavian sounding. I don't know why it is, but it is. So there's that. And then, so to cover that, let me just start with the beginning, because the Sibelius has to be after the intermission as the grand climax of the concert. We begin with Lars Erik Larsson's Pastoral Suite, an absolute gem of Swedish lighter music that a lot of people in like the rest of the world don't know, and they should, because it's just charming and fresh and delicious. So it makes a great concert opener, and it really does sort of, belong in the same family as the first movement of Sibelius' second, that Scandinavian late nature, well, whatever. You know what I mean. When you listen to it, you'll hear it, And then the big concerto is also a transitional work, the Dvořák Piano Concerto, the transition from Dvořák's early Wagnerian kind of phase into a new classicism, which is where Sibelius was heading to. Although this, of course, is much earlier, about 40 years earlier. The Dvořák Piano Concerto, however, although the Sibelius is his most popular symphony, this is one of Dvořák's least popular orchestral works, which says nothing about its quality or the beauty of its themes or the rewardingness. It's because pianists don't like to play it, because the piano writing is very effortful and clunky and unpianistic, according to pianists. And so it was only performed in a heavily revised version, but now people do the original. Brahms liked it. Brahms liked it because the piano writing was kind of awkward and clunky, like a lot of Brahms piano writing is, because, there are some pieces where the struggle, the effortfulness is part of the emotional point. And this is one of those. Brahms, everything he wrote was one of those practically. But yeah, the idea of sonata form, the idea of struggle, of trying to take themes and ideas and take them on an expressive journey and manipulate them in certain ways. It's a plot line, it's a narrative, and there's a struggle and effort involved in that. And so sometimes that's very audible, sometimes it's less audible. This concerto doesn't have the kind of organic, sprung, fully formed from the head of Zeus kind of thing that the Sibelius Second Symphony does. It's quite different. Dvořák wants you to hear the way he's manipulating things and putting them together, but it's no worse for that. It's a beautiful, beautiful work with gorgeous themes. Some sound like Beethoven, some sound like Mozart, some sound like Dvořák. One sounds like Stranger in Paradise. And the finale, ya da 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 da, ya da 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 da. Oh, it's gorgeous. So why on earth doesn't it get played? Well, we're going to do it in one of these concert programs where, like all of our concert programs, you'll never hear them in concert, but you can hear them at home. So give it a shot and see what you think. Thanks so much for joining me, friends. Keep on listening. Take care.